Recording started.
Great, thank you. Let's see. I'm now calling the Tuesday, June 21st, 2000. And I will ask people to mute themselves if they can, if there's the noise there. This is now calling the Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to order. The time is 7:02 p.m. Please note that in accordance with Government Code Section 54953E3, this meeting is being held by teleconference only. Because we're video conferencing, we will follow a strict protocol for the benefit of the recording. I will indicate when commissioners, staff, presenters, and the public will provide comments. If you have called into the meeting and are not using a webcam, please state your name prior to providing your comment for the benefit of the recording. Please practice considerate video conferencing etiquette by muting your line when you're not speaking and limiting distracted behavior on camera. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
Commissioners, I will be conducting all roll calls this evening in the same order. Please remember the order so that you are prepared to provide your comment or vote. President Spreen.
Here.
Vice President Sherlock.
Here.
Commissioner Basigi.
Here.
Commissioner Tonka.
Here.
Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Here.
Commissioner Warren. And we have 6 commissioners present. And also for the benefit of the recording, I will conduct a presenters, consultants, and staff roll call. Santa Clara County Fire Chief Kirkhow. I saw her there. I think you might be muted. Suana? She's waving. Okay. I will accept a wave.
I was in and then it disconnected, so I'm here.
No problem. Okay. Santa Clara County Fire Department Senior Deputy Fire Marshal Ruel.
Present. Video not working presently, but I am present.
Great, thank you. Strategic Planning Consultant Scott.
Here.
Emergency Services Manager Gluhan.
Present.
Operations Manager Barnett.
Here.
Programs Planning and Grants Manager Rendler.
Present.
General Manager Logan.
Here.
Lead Deputy County Counsel Cheladin.
Present.
CERT Program Analyst Beebe.
Present.
And do we have John Eaton from Eaton and Associates? Let's see if there's an iPhone there, but not present. And then Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council CEO Seth Shelley.
Present.
Okay. Presenters, consultants, and staff are accounted for.
Great, thank you. For some commission president remarks, I have one thing to mention real quickly. Are there any members of the public who are here in reference to item 5, which is the public hearing for the proposed abatement of hazardous weeds, brush, or rubbish? Just curious. Not seeing any. Oh, yes. Good. If so, the reason I ask is that in pre-pandemic times, when this is an annual item, and in pre-pandemic items, when we were meeting in person, in person, residents could actually take advantage of the presence of the county representative, Mr. Rule, to talk with him or her offline before it actually came up as the item in the meeting, and that could resolve it or ask questions and really get some direct time, just because we were there in person. Well, here in the virtual world, it's a little harder, but our staff has gone out of their way to create that same opportunity this time. And this is the first time we've done this, where we have a simultaneous breakout room available where you can go meet with Mr. Rule one-on-one, or however many members of the public are here, to talk with him before we actually come up as a commission, so you can speak more informally, ask questions of him, and sort of find out what the status is in a more informal and less sort of official context. Now, and the staff went to a lot of trouble to set that up, and so it's an experiment, so we're hoping everything works, but I hope you'll take advantage of that so you can speak with Mr. Rule for a while before it actually comes up, and speak before you have to speak with the commission. If you'd like to take advantage of that, I will ask staff to offer the right instruction for her to do that.
Well, I have exchanged numerous emails with David Barnett, and I don't know if it's Miss or Mr. I'm sorry, it says J. Logan.
Mhm.
So several people from the fire district have been very kind to email me with their, excuse me? Yes.
If we're in discussion of item 5, we'll move you into the breakout room. But if you want to make a public comment about hazardous weeds that are in your neighborhood, that would be under a different item. So if you're here to talk about a specific residence and the list that is item 5, that is a separate subject from some of the things we talked about on weeds and those invasive species that you talked to me. So if you'd like to make a public comment to the whole commission, that would be at a separate time.
That's a great, I'm sorry, that's a great point.
I don't have a specific comment about a specific property. I have a more big picture comment.
In that case, I apologize to cut you off because the moment for that will be coming up very shortly in public comments, where we can discuss something that's not on the agenda. You can say anything you want. I would, right now, is just offering a hint for anyone who did want to speak to Mr. Rule, who hadn't had a chance and didn't know who to speak to. They could be doing that in parallel with this meeting. That's all I wanted to say at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't see anyone else taking advantage of that, but
We did have one person just come on that I don't know if Grace is here because of a weed abatement concern.
Or the unknown iPhone that's still listed.
Yes, I did get a letter and I'm here to listen because of my notice.
Okay, so if just say one more time, if you want to speak to Mr. Rule informally while the meeting's going on, we have a breakout room in Zoom that you can go speak with him on before item 5 comes up, because it'll be a few minutes before item 5 comes up. And I think that Rosemarie is probably one to speak in the public comment on a general comment. So those are the things available to you. If anyone needs to know how to use the breakout room, I see the host has opened them.
So
Dave, why don't you just go ahead with Grace and our fire marshal?
Okay, I will be moving Grace into the breakout room along with Chief Ruel.
Thank you.
And regardless, everyone will come back and we'll all be here together, but this is the world of virtual meetings. Okay, let's see here. Next, we'll be moving on to an item that Rosemarie's here for, which is the public comment, item 3. Persons wishing, let me read this. Persons wishing to address the commission on any subject not on the agenda may do so now. Please note, however, the commission is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on those items not on the agenda. Items may be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on the next available agenda. District policy is to limit public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker unless the number of speakers requires the commission president to impose shorter time limits, which I don't believe is the case tonight. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? Anyone who is here for that may raise their hand. I know Rosemarie is already there, so I'm gonna let her go first. Rosemarie, you may go ahead.
Let me unmute. Thank you, commissioners and city councilmen. My name is Rosemarie Nam. I'm a resident on Mora Drive in South Los Altos Hills, about a block away from the Mora entry to Rancho San Antonio open space. And I just wanted to address my neighborhood, by the way. I'm here to address our whole neighborhood, even though I'm a resident of just one household. Our neighborhood is bounded by Magdalena to the north, Eastbrook to the east, and Rancho is pretty much to the west and the south. So our neighborhood is basically an extension of Rancho open space, which creates a unique, maybe not that unique in Los Altos Hills, but pretty unique situation with respect to wildfire danger. And as I speak, there is a big fire, 6-alarm fire in Emerald Hills. I don't know if you saw that tonight. So I just wanted to address the big picture, and maybe you've addressed it. This is the first time I'm attending this meeting. And this is also duplicative of my efforts to make presentations at the Mid-Peninsula Open Space Board meeting recently, and the Open Space Committee meeting, the Town Open Space Committee meeting. So 3 critical parties. 1, Rancho open space, right? The weed and brush management at Rancho and how effective that is going to be critical to the wildfire safety of our neighborhood, number one. And so I'm asking you to, how much do you work with them and in coordination with them in this brush management? Number two, roadside right-of-way in the town of Los Altos Hills. And I have spoken with the open space board as well as several public works managers. And again, this is critical, and I want to make sure it's comprehensive in what you address in terms of wildfire management. And last but not least, there are private properties, and I've reported certain properties that are in neglect, but there's another property which is actually owned by Mid-Penn, I just realized, which is at the end of the public section of Ravensbury, which is full of brush. And Kit Gordon actually was kind enough to come out and do a walk and saw that section of the property. And it's quite full of brush and weeds. And I wonder how we address that, because it's actually outside of the park. And that's all for my comments. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you for some wonderful comments. I wish all our residents were as concerned and as observant as you. I know we have quite a lot of discussion and work with Mid-Penn going on, and Dave Barnett especially has done a lot of strategic discussions with them for strategic fuel breaks in that area. I know that we have a commissioner here tonight who is very aware of the Mora Drive areas. So we have a lot of knowledge of that area, and that doesn't go without our observation. We also have two members of the town council here who I'm sure also are very aware of the situations that come under the public works designation as well. I know Kit Gordon as well as from my many years with the open space group over there. And I trust her knowledge of overgrown areas as well. And I think from what you've said here, we will certainly take that under advisement to find out what the property is and what might be done out there. Again, we're not going to take this up tonight, but I think you've done a great job at bringing a neighborhood's issues to bear. And I thank you for that. I wish more would come here and keep those directly in our attention. Any other comments on that? Seeing none, great. Thank you very much, Rosemary, for your time. Do you have any other members of the public who wish to speak in our public comment time? Seeing none, I guess we'll move on to item 4, the consent calendar and changes to the order of the agenda. Let's see. Are there any comments from staff on these items?
President Spring, this is Jay Logan, and I just wanted to point out that on item 4E, that we welcome Eaton and Associates to the team, and they will be providing us IT resources. And there's a memorandum that I think you'll find quite helpful in the packet to provide background and detail. And I'm sorry, that's item 4J. And on item 4E, that's just a report that we were able to execute the agreement with Dudek Environmental so that we can proceed with our grant process. And that's just the 2 comments that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the commission on these items, or any commissioners like to make changes to the consent calendar or the order of the agenda for that matter? Seeing none, I will now entertain a motion. Will the commissioner making the motion and the commissioner seconding the motion please state their names for the benefit of the recording?
Commissioner Tonka, so moved.
Thank you.
Second by Tyson.
Thank you. The item is now open for discussion. Any discussion from the commission on these items? And okay, seeing none. I see some public comment on this discussion. Alan, you have the floor. Alan, you may comment.
Thank you. I'd like to comment on 2 items that are on the consent calendar. One is the contract with Lynx. My observation is that the district has adopted this policy whereby when agreements are coming close to their end period of simply extending the agreement and adding additional dollars to the agreement. I think this is a poor contract management practice. It may be an efficient legal practice, but I think it's a poor contract management practice. As far as the legal aspects is concerned, if you read the original agreement, it expires in November of 2022, and the amendments do not amend that. So in this particular case, the agreement would expire in November 22. In addition, there are some specific tasks that were required in the first part of the agreement, and it is unknown whether those tasks have been completed. And to date, the Lynx has only spent $16,525, and the contract is being amended twice, once to raise it to $31,000 and then now to $48,000. I should also point out that for an organization that has 5 employees, why it should need 15 licenses, it just seems extreme to me. With regards to the Eaton Associates, it's even more surprising. This is an organization that doesn't have a facility, as far as I know, doesn't have any service, and once again has 5 employees, and yet it thinks it's justifiable to spend almost $4,000 a month to maintain what is, I guess, the question. So I just find it it seems rather extreme to spend that much money when there's no facilities, no servers, no networking, and just 5 employees. As far as I know, all the servers the districts have are hosted remotely, and Lynx I think maintains one of them, and some third-party organization must maintain the website. I guess my last question is are these charges going to be based upon the actual utilization, or is it going to be based upon the agreed upon monthly charge? Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you for those. I'm going to respond to a couple of those. Most importantly, Eaton. I will reject your comment that there's not much going on. There's just 4 or 5 employees and there's no IT staff. I have actually been the IT administrator for this group for the last several years. There's actually quite a lot of administration that goes on with a staff of 5, a set of 7 commissioners, a lot of consultants, all of which require data sharing, working with the county and sharing our data there, both on a legal basis for all our contracts, everything that goes on there, security aspects of that. And we're actually running a large, there's an IT effort to archive our data in a secure way, have it backed up, have it shareable and accessible. That includes the website as well. It's been a lot of work for me. So it's not that we don't have any servers, that you don't see them. All the work that goes on with a group that has no facility means everything has to be shared electronically. And email is not enough for that, even though, by the way, this includes administration of our email servers, which requires quite a bit of legal setup to make sure it's in compliance with the way things should be run as a responsible government entity. Eaton is really going to be able, to audit us to make sure that we are using best practices and that we are in compliance with that way more than I am capable of doing. So basically, this district has been profiting off a somewhat incompetent IT administrator who's been working for free, and that's me. So I just want to say that it's a lot of work. I'm very pleased. And by the way, we've spent 4 or 5 months working to find a vendor that's appropriate for the right, exactly for the right size. We have interviewed, somewhere between 3 to 6 different vendors at different times. In fact, we went through one effort on this and decided they were not appropriate for us. And interestingly, our independent search for a vendor, to my total surprise, ended up being the same that the town found recently. I was not aware of that when we had chosen them as the most appropriate vendor for us. So I'm going to, so I apologize for the lengthy explanation, but I've spent a lot of hours on this. And I think that this has been a real detriment for us as a group, not having capable IT administration. I'm very pleased to have this set up. As for the others, Lynx particularly, Those services have been called into play more than expected because of the huge grant efforts that we've been doing. And so we've been calling them in. My understanding is we've been calling them in for more tasks than they were originally on the scope of work. So these are really extensions to recognize the significant additional amounts of work that have gone into ground truthing and having to analyze all the efforts for grants and so forth that require mapping services. So that's where that comes from. I think we're very pleased with those services. Okay, but thank you for those comments. I appreciate it makes sense to ask questions on those. I just wanted to answer them. Let's see. I guess now, there's no further discussion or public comments, we will now vote. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi. Commissioner Basigi, I think you're muted. Yeah, great, thank you. Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
And the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Great, thank you. We will now move on to item 5, the weed abatement public hearing. Do we need to bring Grace or anyone back from the our newfangled breakout room?
They're already here.
Great, okay. Let's see here. Item 5A is a public hearing to consider abatement of hazardous weed, brush, and/or rubbish growing on certain described properties within the wildland urban interface, the WUI area, and declared to be a public nuisance. Senior Deputy Fire Marshal Rule, can you please provide the commission and the public with a brief overview of this process?
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to allow me to give you an overview of the program and then answer questions as needed. The program for Santa Clara County Fire really centers around a defensible space requirement, which is really about structure protection. And in the Los Altos Hills, we are generally looking at a 30-foot defensible space around the home or structure. To help facilitate this, we send out notices around the end of February. Those notices include the general requirements, safety recommendations, which are in addition to the requirements. We briefly discuss the owner's responsibilities and inspection schedule. And then we provide the residents with an opportunity to use a QR code or a mail-in tear-off sheet to avail themselves of our service if they want a courtesy inspection, like a consultation, for us to come out to the home and provide guidance about meeting the requirements and what they need to do. After that, we then start scheduling the requests for courtesy inspections for our deputy fire marshals and our engine companies to go out and start doing routine compliance inspections. That kind of wraps up around mid-May, where our deputy fire marshals then go out and start inspecting non-compliant parcels from the engine company inspection list in an effort to reach out to the citizens and in an effort to provide additional clarity or guidance as needed. This has been previously backed up with a second mailer, which then comes out usually just after that inspection from our deputy fire marshal. Then as we get closer into the June range, we're sending out the final hearing notices and attempting to get any final inspections in for folks that have actually completed the work. Then that list is then tabulated for non-compliant parcels and is sent to the Los Altos Hills County Fire District for this hearing. And then after that, it begins, our process really ends, and the properties left on that list will then move over to the Santa Clara County Weed Abatement Program for potential weed abatement to be conducted by the county after additional processes and inspections by their staff. In sum, we're running district-wide around 12,000 mailers, and we're doing roughly 4,000 to 5,000 inspections this year alone for parcels throughout our district service areas. And I'm happy to answer any questions from Los Altos Hills County staff, the board, or as needed.
Great, thank you, Senior Deputy Fire Marshal Rule. Any questions from the commission on that? If not, oh, I have one from Jim Basigi.
Yes, President Spring, thank you for allowing me to make comments. I have a question. I looked at the list of the inspected parcels and I found the list to be quite short. And I'm a resident that keeps an eye on neighborhoods a lot in terms of walking around and so forth. In fact, by the way, I just want let me make a comment that I'm very, very impressed with the ultimate hardening that has taken place, because I've done before and I've done after, and it's really quite wonderful and it's very noticeable. But I want to mention that the list of the properties that are being essentially tagged is pretty short. It's like 4 or 5 or 6 properties, a couple of them on the Aristidero East. But other than that, I think I'm just wondering what criteria do we use, knowing how many properties are actually potentially in violation to create that list.
So if I've heard your question correctly, you're looking at what particular criteria we use to evaluate properties and then how that gets on the list?
That is correct.
So the criteria we use is what's driven out of the Los Altos Hills Municipal Code. There's approximately, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 items that are listed on the notice.
Right.
Those are typically then, when the engine companies will go out and do their inspections, they'll be inspecting approximately 1/3 of the town of Los Altos. And then based on their assessments from their inspections, they'll then refer them over to the deputy fire marshal staff for follow-up and then potential non-compliance. We try to work with our citizens quite strongly to get them into compliance before getting to this point. And a lot of times we get people down kind of near to the end, and then the folks that are left, go on this list that you have before you today in the exhibit. And there'll be a few that'll actually be coming off this evening as well, whenever that time is appropriate, because we did verify a few more today and yesterday.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, you're welcome.
Can I speak in real quick to clarify something for Commissioner Basigi? So item 4B, which is in front of you right now for the public hearing list, these are just the WUI area residents. And then 4C, which there will be a public hearing next month in July, those are Town of Los Altos proper. So that list is much larger than the one that you see before you tonight.
Thank you very much, Corey. I really appreciate that clarification.
Sure.
Excellent. Thank you all. I guess I will now open the public hearing, time being 7:30 p.m. Please note if any members of the public would like to contest the inclusion of their name or parcel number in Exhibit A of Resolution number 22-12 of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to proceed with the abatement of weeds, brush, and/or rubbish, now is the time to do so. Any and all persons interested having any objections to said list or to any matter contained therein may appear and be heard. Are there any comments from the public? I'm looking for hands.
We have a public comment from someone who's not on the list. I don't know, Chris, are we taking public comment for the public hearing?
Yes, any member of the public can comment on any item on the agenda. I would just want, I don't want to mispronounce the last name, but Grace, who went into the breakout room, just to confirm, or maybe Deputy Ruel or a member of staff can confirm whether that person also may want to testify or whether that they do not.
Curtis, I'll let you speak to the resolution with Grace.
Yeah.
And it's just that it's resolved. There's nothing to say. You don't have to describe it. Just I'll let you.
Yep. No. Yep. No. That process will continue. She will remain on the current non-compliant property list with no further action at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That leaves us with one public comment from Alan.
Thank you. Mine isn't a comment, it's more of a question with regards to the statement that was made. This list is the one 5C that we're discussing, and it says at the top of it, 2022 Weed Abatement Program Assessment Report. But Ms. Vargas says that there's going to be another list at a subsequent meeting. So could someone explain a little clearer the process, and so that I'm sure I understand how properties got on the list and what the next list will contain? Thank you.
Okay, I can speak to that. Back in January, we had a public hearing with the Santa Clara County Agricultural Commissioner present. That was the time for people to contest being included on the list for the town properties. This hearing that we're having tonight is just for the WUI properties. That's the list that's attached to item 5B. So item 5C is it ties in with the list that we had back at the January meeting. And what we will be discussing at the public hearing in July's meeting is the cost of assessing, or the assessment cost to remove those weeds from those parcels. So this list that's attached to 5C, those people already had their chance in January to contest being included on the list. And what the commission will be doing next month is they will decide, set that special abatement cost onto the tax roll of those properties. So it's a different list than what the public hearing is for right now. Public hearing is for 5B only.
Corey, is it fair to say there are really two parallel processes here, one for the WUI areas, one for the non-WUI areas, and they're at different times of the year. And this is the time for the WUI objections from the list.
This is correct, yes.
And it also happens to be later in the process for the non-WUI area where we're doing the item 5C. So
correct, yes.
It does create appropriate confusion.
Yeah, per Mo Cumbre. So the list that we are, should the commission adopt 5B tonight, then those people, their tax roll assessment will roll over to next year. So they would be included because the WUI, I guess WUI and county, their timelines to get on the tax roll are different. And I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to add.
President Spreen, if I could just add one clarification.
Sure.
So the people that this item is voting on to declare the nuisance and authorize the abatement of the nuisance, the folks on the list for this item would have a chance to resolve their issues before county weed abatement would incur costs that then would go on the tax roll. The next item for tonight, which we're not on now, are people whose properties have been abated by county weed abatement or a third-party contractor. And we're not taking action on the next item tonight. We're just setting the hearing for next month for the objections to putting it on the tax roll. And as Corey said, there's two universes. One is the WUI and one is the town. So I hope that slight clarification is helpful. But for tonight, it's the 5 or 6 properties. Essentially, the commission is authorizing those properties to be abated because the process of inspection and encouragement, et cetera, hasn't resulted in the nuisance being cleaned up. And so what we're trying to do tonight is give the public their due process to object if they have objections so that you can hear them and then you'll take action. The next item, as I said, is a setting of the hearing for next month for putting things on the tax roll to pay for abatement that's already occurred.
Great, thank you, sir. I saw a hand up from another member of the public. Alan, you've already spoken, but I see Rosemarie has put her hand up on this item. Rosemarie, you may go.
Yes, hi. So I have a question and a concern. So why is the timeline for this abatement process so delayed that these properties with potential weed issues are not addressed, and here we are in the peak fire season. Shouldn't it be at least 3 to 6 months earlier, the process start? I understand there's got to be notice and response period and so forth, but we're just playing with fire, I think, by having these properties in our neighborhoods. I'm not saying it's in my neighborhood, but in our neighborhoods, not addressed in the peak fire season. And this continues. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Chief Rule, I don't know if you have any comments in terms of the timing of this. I will mention, Rosemary, this is an annual process. This is going to happen every year. So it's a long process to identify, work with them, abate, and handle the financial aspects of it, and it happens every year. I see a hand up from our fire chief. Please respond.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. It is complicated, and you're absolutely right, Rosemary, that there's a place that it feels like we're always behind the curve when it comes to weed abatement and getting everything in order. The problem is that with the rains, you have a lot of vegetation that can grow depending on how late the rainy season goes in. In addition to that, the fire department in itself, based on the, if you will, the cycle that we work with in terms of, weed abatement, can only, I guess, if you will, inspect them during a certain time. So we get them out there as soon as we can in the first quarter and into the second quarter. Now, this year in particular was challenging for us because we had a change in leadership in the fire prevention division. And what I mean by that is that we onboarded a brand new tool, if you will, that does something that we have not had in the past, which is using our GIS data to actually go and inspect these properties. It is phenomenal. It is a huge advancement from where we were in years past, but it took us time to train all the companies to do it. It took us time to get, how we ingest that information and how we're going to export it out. So if I might just say, as we bear with, I guess, the lag time of how we make advances in terms of progress to capture that information. And it goes back to one of the questions or points that was brought up. We just simply cannot hit all the properties in the same year. There's too many properties for our crews to hit given their workload. So we do it over the course of 3 years. And it's really based on catching up right now to where we just didn't get to in 2020, 2021 because of the pandemic. Yeah, as you know, the fire departments were severely, I would say, hindered, given folks who were getting COVID, the social distancing requirements that we had. So I know this is very complicated. I'm asking for, I guess, a little leeway, but knowing that we are working hard on the back end of this to capture it in a timely manner, make sure that we go through, and it almost always hits about this time period when it comes to getting homeowners the ability to actually do something about their properties, because we do have to let the rain subside and then them to get out and do the weed abatement themselves. So we're giving them an opportunity to do that.
Thank you very much for a great answer to a great question. Thank you both. Let's see, I see no more questions from the public. Seeing that, Mr. Rule, do you have any other changes to Resolution 2212 Exhibit A?
I do. I have 2 parcels that will need to be removed from that list. If that could be done this evening, that would be fantastic.
Help me out here. Do you need to read those to Corey in public to change those, or Chris, how do we incorporate that in our motion?
If Deputy Fire Marshal Ruel could read us the
APN number,
the property address and the APN number, then Corey can write those down. And then when, if your commission at your pleasure, if you make a motion to approve the resolution, you can approve the resolution as amended by the deletion of the 2 parcels that Deputy Fire Marshal Ruel will now read into the record.
Great. Okay.
All right. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
APN 175-26022. Property address of 25619 Darling Way. May be removed from the non-compliant properties list. Let me know when you're ready for the second one.
I'm ready for the second one.
APN 182-48052 with an address of 27299 Burn Park Lane may be removed from the 2022 non-compliant WUI list.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. One last check to see if there are any other members of the public who have any objections or comments to the to this list, to the resolution. Seeing none or hearing none, the public hearing is now closed at the time of 7:43 p.m. Let's see, item 5B is the resolution 2212. Are there any clarifying questions from the commission? Seeing none, I will now entertain a motion.
So moved, Commissioner Tonka.
I'm going to assume that's the motion with the amendments.
Yes.
Any second?
Second.
Sherlock seconds.
Great.
I heard two at the same time.
I heard Sherlock first.
Okay, thank you.
And, okay, let's see. Items now open for discussion. Is there any discussion from the commission? And seeing none, are there any additional public comments on this item? Seeing none, if there's no further discussion, we will now vote on the resolution. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
And the motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you, Senior Deputy Fire Marshal Rule. I think you can leave the call now if you wish. I don't think your services are needed. And we appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
We will now move on to item 5C, Resolution 2213. This is to adopt 2213, Resolution 2213 of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners, setting hearing for objections to proposed special assessment costs associated with abatement of weeds or brush growing and or rubbish contained on certain described properties. That's the longest title we've had of one of these. And I appreciate that Chris described this so well before. Are there any clarifying questions from the commission about this item? Again, I think it was well explained by Chris and its distinction. Hearing none, I'll now entertain a motion. Need a motion of Commissioner. I know
I move we approve.
we have Sherlock
Second.
and Vaughn gets in as the second. Thank you so much. The item is now open for discussion. Is there any discussion from the commission?
I'll just add for the minutes, since I mentioned this at the last item, for purposes of the minutes, I would just mention for purposes of this item, this is to set a hearing for the specified list of properties in this resolution to have the commission conduct an objection hearing for placing of pre-existing already incurred abatement costs on the above described properties on the tax roll. And that would occur at the July meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Any additional public comments on this item? Seeing none, no further discussion. We will now vote on the resolution. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you. President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
And the motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Great. Thank you to everyone, and including the members of the public who were here for this item. We will now move on to item 6, receiving the Santa Clara County Fire Chief report. Fire Chief Kirkall, please provide the report.
Again, good evening, President Strain, Vice President Sherlock, Commissioners, General Manager Logan, and staff and attendees. I'll go ahead and share our monthly report. Oh, it says that my screen sharing is disabled. Would you be able to allow me to screen share?
I made you a co-host.
Thank you. Okay, so for the month of May, the total calls in the district of Los Altos Hills County Fire District was 66, of which 42 were code 3 responses. You can see here again, this is just the breakdown over the course of the last 7 years. Here is where we're at. We're pretty much lined up with 2021. This, of course, is the pandemic year. So we're not quite back up to pre-pandemic numbers, but most of this is due to the vehicle accidents along the highway, Freeway 280 corridor. For the month of May, again, you just see that some months are a little bit more busier than others. Again, if we look at the summer months, it kind of stays the same through this season. And then as we get into the very latter part of fire season, we tend to get a few more calls in the district. So I anticipate the same thing coming up here. EMS breakdown in terms of your call volume always tends to be at the top, always hovering around 60%. You had a total of 3 incidents that were deemed fire calls. Here is the map. This one here is the vehicle fire. It was an off-ramp of El Monte, the El Monte off-ramp created a $12,000 loss. The vehicle was completely engulfed when the crews got on scene. I believe our normal freeway response with our first 2 engines, which would have been 74 and 75, and then Palo Alto also responded to this fire just as part of the dual response that occurs. This one here was a smoke odor, if I remember correctly here. Let me just make sure, let me check my notes here. Yeah, the one on Magdalena was around 7 o'clock in the morning on May 5th, which turned out to not be anything that was found in terms of a source cause. And then the same thing here, which occurred on May 20th near Foothill College. And that was a smoke odor investigation at around 8:30 p.m. again, in which a source cause was not found. Going back up to the top, we had a total of 10 programs. 8 of them were virtual. 2, I believe, were in district, resulting in 203 attendees, about 40 staff hours to get those programs out. And then here you'll just see your response times again, 75, 76, and rescue 74. There's some urban densities and some rural density calls, of which again, the call volume is not particularly large, which is good. But here we just have an average response time of 5 minutes, 52 seconds, and that includes call processing time. So again, that's the time that the dispatcher picks up, processes a call, dispatches the call, and then we get on scene. And then in the rural area, which is always challenging for any rural area, it's always a little bit longer. And here we have a total of 7 minutes as your average call processing time. Yeah, are there any questions regarding the May 2022 public safety report? No? Okay. I thought, again, I know, let me stop sharing. Oh, actually here, this is just as just an aside. These were the WUI inspections that the company officers did. Again, you have 74, 75, 76. Those are the station areas. And this was as of May 21st, 100% inspected for the areas in the district. Again, we ended up inspecting, the crews did 587 properties split up among 3 shifts. So again, with all the things that are going on that they're doing, which is hose testing, hydrant testing, WUI inspections, there's a big workload they do opposite of these calls that they respond to, and that's just some of the work that they did. I just wanted to share that with you. I do have some information about the recent vegetation fire as the structure fire. If there are questions regarding that, that will be in the June report, but since they just recently happened, if there's any questions, I can certainly answer those as well.
Those recent fires have certainly brought to everyone's attention that we are always at risk. I see Commissioner Tyson, you have a comment?
Well, it's a comment, not a question. I just want to say that that fire on Father's Day, Sunday morning, was within a very short walk from my house. And I was amazed at the number of units that were there. I was looking at the numbers. I saw 74 and 5, and I think I saw 71, 2, 3, and 7. It was just, they were all lined up. It was quite the group there. I'm glad that nobody was hurt in that structure fire, and I don't know how long it'll take to figure out what caused it, but it was such a, the neighbors are more aware too. I mean, they were talking to me about fuel suppression, and one said it's a good thing that it's a still morning, and I thought, yeah, that's right. And so sometimes it helps to get lucky, but you can't count on it. So I just want to compliment the fire service. Also, just appreciate our sheriffs coming out too. There were 3 of them there to help with anything, and so I just felt like it was a really intense level of support, and I appreciate it.
Definitely our pleasure. There's again, for structure fire that's verified and validated, we send 22 individuals over the course of 7 units to mitigate that, because we're trying to get ahead of the curve. So some fire departments will send a structure response that may be 2 engines, a truck, a battalion chief, and maybe a specialty unit. County Fire tries to throw a little bit ahead of the curve additional resources. So it's part of a second alarm, because the sooner we can get there and the sooner we can mitigate it, we're hoping that we can, number one, make sure that the homeowner is safe or the residents inside and facilitate a rescue if needed. And the second piece is try to salvage what we can when we get on scene.
I was gonna say the response to both that fire and the one over on TAFE were really impressive in the units that were put on scene so quickly. And I hope that any residents who saw that are comforted by the incredible response you were given. And I know some see it as inconvenience. I see it as a tremendous luxury and pleasure to have you there in such force so quickly. It's a great sense of confidence. So thank you very much for that. I know we're getting ahead because that's next month's discussion, but it's on everyone's minds. And I think it was a wonderful response, and really the service really shone with that. Any other comments?
Yes, I wanted to make a comment. General Manager Logan here. Chief Kirkow, thank you so much. And to please extend that to the battalion chiefs and all the fire crews. And I just wanted to mention that part of the protocol that Chief Kirkow and I are working on is how to best and most efficiently communicate to our commission, and also how to communicate then information that may come in and questions from residents. So I think all of you received emails from me, and basically what I do is just give the links to PulsePoint, which is an excellent public facing data of information of fires, and then also to Santa Clara County Fire Department, the Facebook page, which I find remarkably up to date and giving really good information from the incident commander. So that's the kind of information I can provide to the commission that I feel comfortable doing are from those 2 sources. But anytime you want information about an incident, particularly an emergency or a fire incident, please go to PulsePoint or to the Santa Clara County Fire Department Facebook and log on, and you can read as easily as anyone up-to-date information. And then as far as just our encouragement to residents and onlookers to vacate the scene, not be there, because in conversations with Chief Kirkow, what they're trying to do is always look out for life safety, make sure victims are safe, that they don't have any other victims that fall into harm's way, and particularly to secure the perimeters so they can keep the evidence that may be available so they can do their fire investigation. So that's just kind of what I wanted to review at this point in time, and then just ask if any commissioners have questions or if Chief Kirkow wanted to make some comments along that line also. Thank you.
Communication is really key. And again, General Manager Logan is on top of that, reporting out what we can. What we do afterwards through the duty chief route is we get more detailed information once we either make a stop in terms of forward progress, if it's a vegetation fire, or for a structure fire, we do a secondary once we get a knockdown on the fire. So some of the information is sensitive because we know that unfortunately not all fires don't have injuries or fatalities, and we want to make sure we're sensitive to getting any information out, even to news media before. The last thing we want is for somebody to read something before we are able to make notification to those who are actually directly affected. And then when it comes to notification to the general manager, as soon as we can, we make that notification. In the case, like, for example, when we had that Dell fire, which was a 72,000 square foot vacant building in Campbell, immediately, even before we could even get knocked down, I made a call to the duty chief and I said, I need you to make notification to the city of Campbell right now, because they need to know that this event is happening. So I will want to assure you that if there is something in which homes are threatened, there may be a place where it's just a large event. It may not even be a structure fire. It might be a gas, investigation with a gas line broken. We make those notifications to General Manager Logan as soon as we're able to.
Great. Thank you very much. I see we have one comment from the public. Alan, your turn to speak.
Chief, thank you so much for the quick response and putting out those fires. Obviously, we all very much appreciate that. I have a question that's kind of a follow-up to Commissioner Besigi's question. When you put up the number of homes that you inspected, if you don't mind putting that up again, if it's all right with the chair, it showed 547, I think that's the number, WUI properties. There are about 4,000 properties in the district. From what list is this WUI nomenclature identified? Because I'd very much like to understand what properties the fire district the fire department considers are within the WUI district. And the last part of my question is, the Los Trancos area is also part of this fire district. Are some of the properties located up in the Los Trancos area? Thank you so much for your response.
Alan, thank you for your question. Very good question. The last question I'm going to answer first, which is I'll have to go back and get that information directly from Chief Estrada to ensure that they did include that. And again, it's this place that we have a very adept GIS analyst that works for us. And there was a process in which he, as well as Chief Matheson, who is our wildland officer, and our fire prevention division as a whole, working through the assistant fire marshal's office, came up with, okay, for this year, these are the properties that we're going to be able to inspect. Again, we were a little behind the curve. We wanted just to start where we stood with this new program and ensure that we had manageable bites that the crews could take, because as you mentioned, 4,000 homes, that's a lot for any crew, whether you're on 3 shifts to get through in a short period of 2 months, 3 months. So what I can do, Mr. Epstein, is go ahead and just make sure that number one, the Los Trancos area was included in that aggregate group of inspected homes that were identified. And number two, again, assure you that we plan on making that bigger as we start taking bigger steps in terms of the WUI inspections and ensuring that they meet the protocol to be inspected.
Great. Any other comments?
The last thing I'd like to just say, if there are no other comments, is that your Station 8 up there off of Altamont, off of Page Mill, is being staffed as we speak. I spoke to Chief McNally with Palo Alto today, and he and our ops chief Filarski was up there approximately 2 weeks ago, just again conferring and making sure that the station is equipped, that the crews are comfortable, that they have everything they need. So Palo Alto will staff that station, advanced life support, ALS, through the end of June. County fire staff will take over July 1st through July, again over in September, and then as needed in November, and Palo Alto will be up there again in August and October. And we will come up with a report. McNally and I will report out the calls so that the commissioners have a sense of what those resources are responding to, the times that they're responding to, and mitigation efforts.
Great. Well, thank you, Chief, for your time and for your report and for all these comments. It's been very informative. And I thank you for your time this evening. Let's see. I guess we'll be moving on to item 7, which is the General Manager report. General Manager Logan, please present that report.
Yes, thank you. Will do. I guess it helps us start at the beginning. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And here are some nice depictions of the various programs that we've had in this month. And this is of the fair, or the picnic, excuse me, that was at Los Altos Hills. And you'll see on the left, one of our CERT supervisors who's using a very unique way of showing a young person how to use a fire extinguisher, which is over on the right, by a TV screen, rather than having to carry around a fire pan and do it in reality. And then the CERT trailer is in the center, and then a invitation to our district newsletter, which is going to be the second edition that will come out at the end of this week, is the last photo here on the cover page, which takes me then to update events and activities. Wanted to let you know that risk management, we had a fire hydrant claim, and that was paid in full by the carrier. The hydrant was located on Bassett Lane. You can see the amount of damage, and that had to do with a motorist running into the fire hydrant, and luckily we had the identification. Police report was taken. We worked with the insurance company and got full damages back from the fire hydrant. It was an interesting conversation because the insurance company first suggested that the hydrant had depreciated over time and they were willing to deduct a certain percentage. We were able to convince them that no, our hydrants do not depreciate. They are in very good form and they're ready for public service emergency events. And so then with that logic, we were able to receive the full amount to cover the cost of replacing the hydrant. The second item is second edition of the newsletter. Will be out tentatively the end of this week. It is digital. I really implore the commissioners to send it to all of your friends and neighbors, and also to take a look at what we've done with the digital newsletter. We're trying to improve it every edition, and we'd love to have your feedback. And then just the next two bullets are Altamont Road evacuation route is complete. You'll hear more about that. And gratefully, end of June, county budget workshops and hearings are complete. So that makes me a very happy general manager. Moving on, the Santa Clara County Emergency Communication Annex was stood up, and a drill was done throughout the county. And this was for PIO, or for public information outreach and emergency information. The district did participate in that. And so here is some of the information. And very interesting, if you want to check on that link at the bottom of this page, you'll see how extensive public information officer and communications are thought through, and what an excellent job our county does through the department to help us in emergency situations, and how all of the agencies were combined in this exercise. So thank you to the staff from Los Altos Hills that provided support, and we're better educated as a result. And that is the end of my report. Would take any questions or direction if any are offered. Thank you.
Hello, Jay. Commissioner Vaughn here.
Yes, hi.
I wanted to know if you could give a quick update on the water supply for Mora Drive, and what are the next steps, and how can we expedite that program, and what can we do in order. I personally feel like it's one of our biggest target hazards in our district. And I really like to get a handle around it. We've been kind of chasing that rabbit for a while, for at least the 9 years I've been on the board, and I really like to see us do something about it.
Yep, I can include that in the next report, Commissioner Vaughn. But to give it a little background, the area around the Mora Drive during a study a number of years ago, before I was involved with the district, showed that the fire flow in that area was not up to a standard that a lot of people felt comfortable with, particularly commissioners on the board. And so as a result of that, conversation was convened with Cal Water to make improvements. And as you know, Cal Water is an independent water agency and utility. They conduct their business. We give them our thoughts and our encouragement. And so as a result, I asked our district engineer, Jeff Tarantino, to please take up conversation with Cal Water so we could look at what the recent improvements in the area of the Mora Drive have been through Cal Water, and then enjoying some fire flow testing. We're working through that process. We also reached out to the CPUC to try to get reports from them. So it's laborious, it takes time, and I know you've been very patient, but we've not given up on it, and we just continue to push ahead. I would happy to take any suggestions that you have as to how you would think we could speed up the process, but that's where we are right now.
Is it possible that we could invite Cal Water back to one of our board meetings and ask them directly, what can we do to assist to kind of move this project forward? As the resident stated, this is probably the biggest target hazard in our jurisdiction. And I'm really, really concerned about Rancho San Antonio, because if that goes up, all bets are off. And so I'm really concerned about the lack of water pressure there. And it's been like that for a number of years. And so I think we have the resources to mitigate that situation. And I think we should be doing everything we can in order to fix it.
Okay, so noted. I'll reach out to Cal Water and present that invitation to them, get them on the agenda as soon as we can.
Thank you so much, Jay. Appreciate it.
Sure, you bet. Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, sorry.
Appreciate that direction. Thank you.
Okay, seeing none. Thank you, General Manager Logan. Let's see, we'll now move on to item 8, district reports, operations, emergency services, CERT, and integrated hazardous fuel reduction, and receiving those reports from staff. Let's see, item 8A is the report on CERT. CERT Program Analyst Beebe, please present that report.
Thank you, President Spreen. Good evening to everybody. May and June were full of some great community events that I want to highlight tonight. Can you guys see that? Hopefully. Yes. Yes. Okay, awesome. Breakfast with the Goats was on May 13th. District staff was able to educate 25 residents on how goats can help decrease the hazardous vegetation by eating in areas that humans cannot easily access. The event itself was a short hike in from the beginning of Burn Preserve up at the West Wind Barn. And then they ended with a nice pastry and cup of Joe at the end at the Artemis Genson Trail Path Trailhead. Denise, Captain Gluen described the event as, which I loved, in the Town Crier article that was written after the event. It's agriculture meets community outreach, which I thought was just an amazing quote. And really, this is, definitely an unprecedented event. Very, very, excited the residents very much. We didn't have as many turnout as had signed up, but that's okay. There was a lot of logistical things that had to go into place. And unfortunately, the goats didn't follow our schedule, which we learned. Just want to shout out to the district staff and the town staff that helped create such a great event. Also, CERT has been pretty busy as well. So we had a tabletop spring drill on May 15th. This was really centered around documentation flow after an incident. It's quite the process to intake incidents when we have our certs that go out and do critical infrastructure checks and then report back, and then we have to prioritize those. So that went really well. We had about 20 people there. They found it very beneficial, and that's kind of teed up for our next drill that we're going to have, which is going to be actually opening up the arc, setting it all up, and then doing some active recon and reporting in and going over even more procedures too. Also too, we had EOC orientation. Neil Caton, who is both ECC and CERT, met with Ann Heppenstall from the town and some of our CERT supervisors to do a tour of the EOC, talk about communications after an event and how that works. It was very, very helpful for us to as well alongside listen into the county drill that was going on with the Ham Aries Races group. That was very helpful. I think Anne really enjoyed as well, getting that background. That will just help her. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ann Heppenstall, but she's the Emergency Services Manager Consultant for the town of Los Altos Hills, and she just started back in May. Also had a Teen Cert CPR AED and Stop the Bleed class. We started that with the teens telling us that they were at an ASB camp and they were able to provide first aid to actually one of the other Teen Cert members who got hurt. So they're very proud of themselves. They said, Mrs. Beebe, we immediately jumped on it. We stopped the bleed, we bandaged them up. And then 2 hours later, somebody else fell and they hurt their ankle. So it was really, really nice to hear that kind of feedback that, our energy and efforts going into training these teens is really overflowing to other areas of their life. And we always talk about life skills. That was a perfect example of that. And then again, Jay talked about the Los Altos Hills Town Picnic. What a great event. It was my first time there. I can't tell you how much fun it was for us, for a staff and certs. And, Dave Stewart does an excellent job he's quite the celebrity now with crowd pleasing and the fire extinguisher stuff. He's positioned himself right at the entrance of the picnic. You couldn't miss him. He was just busy doing that fire extinguisher education. It was great to be next to the sheriff office and some of our other, allied agencies and chat with them. And it was really great, just a great community event. Supervisor Simidian came out. We were able as CERTs, teen CERTs and district staff to thank him for his continued participation and support of our CERT and teen CERT program in the district as a whole. So really, really enjoyed these events. Our next upcoming events will be at the July 4th parade, providing some traffic and crowd management, some situational awareness. I'm hoping to get some teens to shadow some adults and really learn about radio communications. We actually have sort of a backup where they're going to use an app to learn how to actually talk to each other on an app on their phone. We're going to actually look into that as a CERT thing as well in case we need backup. And we'll also be out manning our booth at the Los Altos Art and Wine Festival on July 9th and 10th. So as always, come by and say hi. I know the teens and the rest of the CERTs really love to see you guys out there in action in the community. So thank you very much. That is the end of my report.
You're muted,
Roger, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, you missed my fervent love of the Teen Cert comments that I make every time. I just love seeing those. Any other comments from the commission on a very active report? Yes, Commissioner CG.
Really, just an observation. During town picnic, I happened to go by the table and observe some of the teens. They were really jazzed up and energized, and it seemed to be the enthusiasm was almost infectious. So thank you very much.
That is truly awesome. I noticed when I went to the picnic, there was that one kid there for the Teen Cert. He was there the entire time. He did not leave his post. I was very impressed by that. So great. Okay.
I'd just like to say thank you to Victoria. I mean, you just keep that energy going. There is just never an off week. There's not a time that you're not participating with the community one way or another. It's really great. Much appreciated.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. I really do like getting out and just, it energizes me too, because sometimes it gets tedious, but it's like, oh, I just love being out there in that town event. I mean, it was spectacular. I really enjoyed it, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. Okay, moving on, since I see no other comments, moving on to item 8B, which is the report on the Altamont Road evacuation route and road hardening project. Emergency Services Manager Gluhan, please present the update.
Thank you, President Spreen and commissioners. First of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Basigi for that great acknowledgement of the difference on Altamont Road. That's the kind of input that we like to hear, that you can actually notice that there's been some activity and some mitigation going on. So we completed this on May 25th. It was about an 8-day work cycle. You can see the number of hours, and I thank Dave Barnett for accumulating all of this information and calculating and putting these things together. We also utilize it not only as evacuation route hardening, but a little bit of metric survey to try to get some measuring metrics to help with some of the grants, especially with 280. We will have a full report at the July meeting, but this will give you just kind of an overview that the project's been done. Next slide. Or this is the only slide. Just one slide. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I'll just talk really quick about a couple of the things, some of the challenges. We had about 4 of those 8 days over 90 degrees. So it was really taxing on the crew compared to the fall El Monte Moody Road, which is a lot cooler. We were actually worried about rain on that project, whereas this one, it was heat. Fortunately, we were on the cooler side, which was another little bit of an impediment. Is there's a lot of riparian and biological areas. So if you drove down the road, you might have noticed pink and blue flagging. Those are areas that are excluded from treatment, whether it's a sensitive species or an animal habitat. So that is, again, a challenge. And along with habitats, frequently a lot of poison oak. That is one of the other challenges. We had a lot of robust poison oak growing, and we did not have the mitigation planned in for this to use mastication like we did on around Foothill College. So there was a little bit of poison oak that was occurred on some of the crews and some of the staff. Additionally, traffic's always, and that's a, kind of a fast road with a lot of curves. So traffic's always a challenge. We try to get the pace going really well, but we don't want to get ahead of traffic control. And then we also did have to deal a little bit with a smaller sized, we RFP'd for 2 full crews and 2 chippers, but because of COVID, we were limited to only really 1 day with that full service because of the pandemic. So again, some of those challenges, but it really was a good project. We got a lot done, and I think you can really notice the difference in the hardening, and residents were very happy that I spoke with. So thank you. If there's any questions.
I think it's important to note that despite, it took months of planning to get to that. And despite all that, things still change outside of their control. And for it to come off that well and that well managed was really quite impressive, because I drive by there every day. And so I was able to see it progress. So thank you very much for all that unexpected effort as well. Any other comments on that?
I just want to throw out really quick a thank you to Fire Safe Council too. I know we don't have, I don't see Seth on any longer, but they really, Irene Armstrong, which also runs our chipping program, she did an amazing job. Dave, like I said, measuring some of the metrics to get some more data collection. But it was really well done, and we were able to stay inside our schedule, even though we had some things that were a little challenging. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And seeing no other comments, we will move on to item 9. This is to receive an update on the I-280 project and the Cal OES FEMA sub-application for grant funds. Programs Planning and Grants Manager Rendler, please provide that update.
Oh, wait. There we are. Okay, thank you. Have to move you out of the way. So the first update for our grant report will be on our Cal OES application. And we just received, this is the application that we put in April 2022, just to remind you of the background. And we received our request for information this past week, and we've been working through getting them the details that they need. So that's good. It means that we're in and we're being processed. And then the other thing that has happened is we've secured the contract with Dudek Environmental, as General Manager Logan mentioned earlier. We are now in a position to begin the environmental compliance surveys and the visual impact assessment surveys and outreach. So that is also part of the things that we need to do for our sub application and have completed by October. The next thing that we would like to talk about this evening is what this has led to in terms of our consideration for grants. This was a huge lift, as you know, and most of it happened right before I came on board. But it made us realize that, there's a lot of partnerships out there, and that a grant strategy is probably in order at this point. You've heard in the news all the money that's been encumbered through the different federal government and state government layers. And in putting together the application, we worked with a lot of our partners. It gives us an opportunity for how we want to develop a grant strategy as this jurisdiction and organization moves forward. We can leverage our taxpayers' dollars by matching them with grants. We have the ability to fund larger programs, especially project programs, with an emphasis on collaborating with partners and cooperative expenditure of capital. Not all of our partners have the funds to meet us halfway on some of these, or meet their 1/3 or their 1/5, whatever kind of portions happen on these large projects. So this helps, grant program helps them, you know, have a capital expenditure.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you, Jenny. I was trying not to interrupt. I just want to make sure we're on 9, which is I-280 project, and it sounds like
okay. Then I'm sorry. All my slides were put together into one.
Yeah,
my
no problem.
apologies.
It sounds like no problem at all. It sounds like we've moved into 10, and the commission could choose to combine those 2 items, and you could keep going, and we could hear public comment on both at the same time. But for purposes of the minutes, I just wanted to clarify whether we were still on 9 or whether we'd moved into 10, and I'll leave it to President Spreen as to how he wants to handle it.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go ahead and real quickly we'll ask questions on item 9. Anything about the I-280 project? I think that was well specified by Eugenia, but are there any questions or comments on that? Seeing no hands up, we can close item 9. We'll move on to item 10, which is this report about grant strategies. Thank you, Chris, for keeping us on that.
Thank you.
Agenda.
Okay, so from our existing grant to our forward-facing grants. So this is how we got to the point of wanting to develop a strategy. So the next layer to that is, where do we want to go? Our statement of purpose. In addition to bringing forward a strategy, some of these bullet points overlap with the slides that I just went over of what we've discovered. It also allows us to lend subject matter expertise to helping our partners on these larger collaborations. And regional provision is more effective than small areas. This is kind of the same idea of you need to have your house hardened and your next door neighbor's house hardened. Well, when you look at that in a regional approach, the more that we can do in the region, the safer our jurisdiction is. So these grants allow us to do bigger projects and bring in more partnership. And finally, grant management, we're looking at targeting 1 to 3 applications annually and utilizing existing staff for the required applications and reporting. We actually have good skill sets already in-house for this. And then the expertise that we need for studies, reports, GIS, things like that will come from subject matter experts as consultants. So finally, our next steps, we will be developing as part of the successor strategic planning process that will be coming up to clarify what we want to incorporate, put together the guidelines, provide the communication and messaging to partners, and continue to be flexible. Our process is changing and growing as we learn more, and as everyone who follows any of the wildfire prevention news and money that's being appropriated knows that that arena is changing really quickly too. And that is the end of my...
Great. Thank you for that report. You know, I would like to highlight for the commissioners is that, you know, what a key step this is for us. We've sort of discovered this year, you know, in some ways we have more ambitions and we'd like to do more with our funds and our resources than we are able to, partly because it's you know, we're not, for example, can't spend our funds on private properties or on other regional areas. To be responsible to our residents, we need to use our funds in our public lands. But the grants have become a way to collaborate with our other stakeholders and our regional neighbors, where we can use our resources and our expertise to set up these larger projects that really need to be done in collaboration with other regional partners, and bring it to bear and have them help bring their resources together and be able to spend our funds in on these larger projects. This will clearly become part of our discussion as we move into our strategic plan discussions over the next few months. But we really wanted to emphasize what we've learned about, grants are not just an interesting little thing to sidelight. This is really a key way for us to bring our resources to bear that we hadn't realized. So I wanted to highlight that for commissioners. And if there's any questions or on that, I'd certainly promote that discussion at this point. Any commissioner questions on that, or any commissioner questions to Eugenia?
I have a question. If you can hear me, I couldn't get my hand up.
I can't see the whole grid, so I can't tell whose hands are up. So,
hi, can you hear me? I do have a question.
Yes.
Okay, great. Eugenia, is there a commissioner working with you on this one that has that area of involvement in the strategies or in the strategic plan?
This, we haven't well, I'll tag team back to Jay, but at this point, we haven't identified who that person is, and we haven't
gotten to that point. Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, I can comment. This is strictly a staff conversation. When Eugenia and I and Marcy Scott talked and said, we're talking grants here. We just need a strategy and a purpose and a vision. And so it's marked draft just to get minds thinking and to get these kinds of comments, Vice President Sherlock. So from there, we'll go to a full session with the commission, make this an agenda item as part of the strategic plan, and then see what the will and the thinking is of the commission.
Okay, I didn't know if it fell under a certain column and somebody was already responsible for that. I'd be interested in working on that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I see we have one public comment. Alan?
Yes, thank you. I'd be interested in hearing about the status of the working relationship with the regional open space. We haven't heard anything about that for many months. I secondly like to say that the district has $30+ million and it's growing every single year. And while I appreciate that leveraging money is good and getting grants is good, we also know that it takes a lot of time, and it takes and it delays projects from being implemented. The I-280 project, may get started in a year and a half. I appreciate the need for the project. I appreciate the efforts to get additional funding for it, but it also delays progress on projects. I guess my reaction to this strategy for grants is that if they have a nexus to the fire district's area, that's fine. But if this is an effort to leverage abilities to process grants for the sake of leveraging the ability to process grant, I don't see how that's in the best interest of the residents, and would rather see the time and effort spent more on accomplishing the things that need to be done in this district, with the caveat, of course, that, as pointed out, neighboring areas that have a nexus to our safety certainly should be considered. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Alan. And I believe that is the intent. This is about our neighboring areas. We really extended our strategic view to the area around ourselves, and we have a neighbor at each part of that boundary. And so this is a way of working with them for that. So that's an appropriate comment. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Let's see. Thank you, Eugenia, for that. We'll move on to, I guess that's item 11. Is that correct?
Yes, it's item 11.
Item 11, the financial consultant report and district clerk report. Let's see, financial consultant Vargas, please provide that update of 11A.
One sec. Let me.
And while you're doing that, I will say this 11A is an update on the fiscal year 2022 Santa Clara County budget, public hearings, and approval of the district budget.
Correct. Yes. Well, not close enough. Okay, can everybody see my screen? So I just want to give a quick update for item 11A. And this report isn't in the agenda packet. So I did remind all of you of the lengthy budget development process. This began back in November of 2021 when we had our Standing Budget Subcommittee special meeting. This budget has been brought in front of the commission on a couple of occasions. And finally, at the February 15th, 2020 regular meeting, you adopted a draft version of this budget, which was submitted to the County Office of Budget and Analysis, OBA, that's what we call them, OBA. And I'm happy to report that there were no changes to the budget, the draft budget that the commission approved via the county executive or via the Board of Supervisors after the budget workshop and the budget hearings. And those that fiscal year 2022-2023 budget of the county and special districts was approved by the Board of Supervisors on June 16th. That includes our, excuse me, my dog is barking, includes our budget as you saw it back in February with no changes. So now what I'm asking tonight is I'm recommending that we officially adopt that budget as our final budget. And that's what's item 11B in your packet. And then item 11C is the budget narrative, which you all saw, I think 2 months ago at the meeting. So to adopt that as well, and both of those documents will be posted to the finance section of our district website. And that is the end of my report on that.
Thank you, Financial Consultant Vargas. Is there any discussion from the commission on this item? Again, this is about the update on that, the county results of that. Item B will be actually adopting the budget itself. So I'm not expecting too many comments on this. I don't see any commission or public comments on that. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 11B, which is the adoption of the fiscal year 2022-23 budget. Financial Consultant Vargas, please introduce this item specifically.
I think I'm already sort of went over that.
Yeah,
we're looking to adopt this budget officially as our final budget.
Great. As a response to the county's approval, it's now our opportunity to adopt this budget. Are there any clarifying questions from the commission? Seeing none. Any comments from the public? Or actually, let's wait to have a motion. I'll first entertain a motion on this. Who would like to move this?
This is Jim Basigi. I so move.
Thank you. And a second?
Oh, Sherlock seconds.
Thank you very much. Okay, now it's open for discussion. Any commission needs one more chance to discuss. Any comments or questions? Seeing none now. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will now vote to adopt that budget. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
President Spreen.
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock.
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
Okay, and the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 11C, which is the adoption of the fiscal year 2022-23 budget narrative and the fiscal year 2022-23 budget by month. I think Financial Consultant Vargas, you've already introduced the item, so I'm like to move straight to any clarifying questions from the commission or a motion. Seeing no questions, anyone would like to move?
Sherlock moves to adopt.
Tyson will second.
Tyson seconds, thank you. Let's see, items open for discussion. Is there any discussion from commission on this item? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, no further discussion, we'll now vote to adopt this budget narrative and budget by month. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
President Spreen.
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
And the motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 12, commission member reports, which is an opportunity for commissioners to provide reports or any future agenda topics. Any other comments from the commission on any particular topics they'd like to introduce or put on agenda? Seeing none. Okay, great. I see no reason for public comment on this item since there's really nothing, it's kind of an empty item. In which case we'll move on to item 13, which is a closed session, which is a, as you can see from the title, is a employee performance evaluation on the general manager. The commission will now adjourn to closed session. Before we join the closed session, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, the commissioners, Consultant Scott and Lead Deputy County Counsel Sheldon will now adjourn to the closed session. Commissioners, you should have received a separate email from Consultant Scott with the meeting information. We will rejoin this Zoom call upon completion of that closed session. And then we'll return to open session to announce any reportable action and moving on to item 9 to adjourn. Members of the public and other attendees, you are welcome to remain on this call during the closed session. District Clerk Vargas, please note for the record the time is 8:38 p.m. General Analyst Beebe, please pause the recording.
Recording is resumed.
Thank you. District Clerk Vargas, please note for the record the time is 9:28 p.m. and please conduct the roll call.
Okay. President Spreen.
Here.
Vice President Sherlock.
Here.
Commissioner Basiji.
Here.
Commissioner Tonka.
Here.
Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Here.
And we have 6 commissioners present.
Thank you. We're now on agenda item 14, return to open session. Lead Deputy County Counsel Sheldon, please announce any reportable action from the closed session.
The commission took no reportable action in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now move on to item 15, adjournment. This concludes the June 21st, 2022 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. The meeting is adjourned at 9:28 p.m. The next regular meeting will take place via Zoom on July 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. General Analyst Beebe, please stop the recording.